Of the Russians. I want to bring in national security and political analyst Paul Rieckhoff, who also hosts the Independent Americans podcast. I have a lot to talk to you about this morning, starting with some big headlines. First of all, Russian defense leaders are in North Korea, and they're touring the nuclear weapons. This is not good.
It's wild times, Marnie. Every time I talk to you, it seems like there's a new tangent that we hadn't expected. But I think the larger landscape remains the same. Putin is trying to shore up his forces. He's trying to grasp for allies and any kind of support he can get because the Ukrainian offensive is here. It now appears to be underway in the southeast on three fronts. And this was something we've been waiting for months now. Zelensky shored up his support with NATO. He got support in the form of military operational support and weapons from really around the globe. And it looks like now the long-awaited offensive is here. So I would expect the unexpected from Putin. He'll try to grasp for any allies or angles he can. But it seems like what could be a very long, bloody, and brutal offensive is finally here.
And the Ukrainians have made some important ground, right? They've had a lot of momentum, but even the U.S. and Ukraine acknowledging that the counteroffensive isn't going as quickly as possible. What are their challenges right now?
Well, the first reports are almost always wrong. And I think it's important to note that we're hearing about the offensive from the United States, not from the Ukrainians. They're keeping their cards pretty close to their vest, but Putin has acknowledged publicly that there seem to be attacks underway. So I think we should really brace ourselves for what could be limited information during these periods, incorrect information in the beginning, but over time we should expect bloody, brutal conflict that's been the likes of which we haven't seen since World War II to continue and to extend. The Russians are going to dig in, but the Ukrainians have been preparing for this, and they may see some minor setbacks. But over time, given the amount of support they have from NATO, given the reserves they have, and given the fragility of the Russian military and the support back home, I think the Ukrainians are going to gain ground and eventually prevail.
Another head scratcher is that the Wagner leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, has resurfaced. There's an image of him in St. Petersburg. What's your read on that?
Again, I think Putin's going to pull out any trick he can. If he can at least make the appearance of Prigozhin public, he can give the impression that Prigozhin is at least in his camp or up for grabs. Anything that Putin can do to distract from the Ukrainian offensive and try to appear bigger and stronger than he is something he's going to do. We don't know what Prigozhin's going to do. He could just be waiting for Putin to go down, for him to be weakened. I think that Putin's really going to see attacks from the outside on his military, and he's going to see increased attacks politically from the folks that are very close to him on the inside. I think ultimately that's what we'll see. Putin will probably go down at some point, and it'll most likely come from someone within who makes an attempt at his life, like Prigozhin did with a coup attempt that stopped just over 100 kilometers away from Moscow.
Yeah, and another significant development, we've talked about this, I mentioned it just a moment ago, but the maximum age for mandatory military service now 18 to 30. So Putin is trying to get more people on board his military. Is this a sign of desperation, trouble in the water?
He's scraping the bottom of the barrel. I mean, we can think back to times when we've been in protracted wars. We've had to lower our recruiting standards, whether it was during the extended times of the global war on terror, or even going back the times in Vietnam. He's going to reach deeper and deeper into the Russian people to try to provide the forces. But it's important to note, these are not professional soldiers. They don't have the technical and tactical competence that the Ukrainians have, who've been training with Western forces and Americans long before this war started. So I think overall, the professionalism, the competence, the lethality of the Ukrainians has appeared to be higher throughout this war. And the longer it goes on, I think the more that's going to show its strength.
Paul, I'm curious your thoughts on Trevor Reed, the American Marine, the veteran that was released from Russia in a prisoner swap in the last year, was in Ukraine, was injured in fighting. First of all, he's there. He felt a need to go on his own to participate in the fighting. How does this impact other Americans who are there and also others who are imprisoned by Russia right now? Paul Whelan, one, Evan Gershkovich, the journalist, another. How are you absorbing this latest news?
Well, I covered it at length in my podcast. I talked to James Laporta, an investigative reporter and Marine, who broke some of this information. And I've actually been in touch with some of the folks working with Trevor Reed's family when he was first injured. So I had a little bit of an insight into what was going on here. And Trevor Reed was wounded. He's an American veteran who was held in a Russian prison for something like 600 days. And I think on a very basic level, we have to kind of understand where he's coming from. If Russia Russia held me for 600 days and I was an American Marine, I'd probably want to go back and be a part of the fight against Russia. That's what he was doing. He was there to try to make an impact. And once he did get hurt, he wanted to get the best medical care he could. They tried to get him speedy care and to potentially get him to American military bases like Landstuhl where they could treat him. But the American military also doesn't want to send a message to other Americans that if you get wounded, we're going to take care of you. But I think the important point here is that he seems to be stable. He seems to be safe. And I hope personally that he tells his story himself to me, to you, and other members of the American media in the days to come, because I still think the Americans fighting in Ukraine, volunteering as humanitarians, working with nonprofit organizations, I think that perspective is really one of the most underreported and least well told parts of this entire conflict. I want to hear from more Americans who've been there, especially those who have military experience.
Yeah, as do I. Paul, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Marnie.